Hello, School Libraries Association. Ross Montgomery here. I didn't get to do my reading yesterday from The Midnight Guardians, the new book that I was talking about. That's out with Walker Books on the 3rd of September. So I thought I'd record a video of me reading a little extract for you now. To remind you about what the book is about, The Midnight Guardians is about a boy called Cole. You can see him on the front cover there, just at the front of the tiger, in his boys' brigade uniform, which makes him look a bit like a monkey at a funeral. It's about a boy called Cole who during the Second World War has been evacuated far away from his home in London, and one night he discovers that his imaginary friends from his childhood have come back to try and find him and give him a dire warning. His three imaginary friends, his guardians, you can see them there, are a giant shape-shifting tiger called Pendlebury, a badger in a waistcoat called Mr. Noakes, and a very short knight in shining armour called the King of Rogues. I've decided the chapter that I'm going to read to you is going to be the chapter when Cole sees them in the flesh for the very first time, which is obviously not something he was expecting. Here we go. The Return of the Guardians. Cole stared at his imaginary friends. The Guardians were exactly as he'd always imagined them. Pendlebury was sleek and mysterious, a creature woven from stars and midnight. Mr. Noakes was moth-eaten and burly, like an affable old man in a country pub. The King of Rogues was all bug eyes and wonky limbs, more of a puppet than a person. But now they weren't imaginary. They were real. They were talking and moving in front of him like real people, and their colours. Since the war began, the world had been all ration book greys and blacks, weak tea and burned toast. Winter had drained the life from everything. And yet the Guardians were so bright, so vivid. They almost seemed to shimmer in the air. Cole was utterly speechless. The King of Rogues suddenly threw himself to the floor in front of him, sounding like a stack of tin cans being chucked down a staircase. "My liege! I never once doubted you would come." He bowed his head over his sword. "We, your loyal guardians, have returned to our place of making to fulfil our sacred duty and—" Mr. Noakes bustled him to one side. "Oh, leave off. Poor lad can't understand a word you're saying." He stood in front of Cole and beamed furrily. "What an honour to finally see you in the flesh, Master Cole. You've become quite the gentleman, I see. Look at you, all dressed up in your fine monkey suit." Pendlebury poured herself down from the rafters. "Boys, please. Give Cole some room. This must be a lot for him to take in. After all, he's never seen us like this before. Have you, Cole?" Cole yelped. The tiger's tail had reached behind him and was tickling him on the cheek. "What's going on?" he cried. "What's happening?" The Guardian's smiles dropped. "He doesn't seem very happy to see us," said Mr. Noakes. "Is he frightened?" said the King of Rogues. Cole shook his head like a dog trying to dry itself. This was all too much. There was no way that his imaginary friends were standing in front of him in his attic. "This isn't happening. It's not real. I'll close my eyes, and when I'll open them, you'll be gone." He closed his eyes, counted to 5, and opened them. His guardians were still standing in front of him, looking even more confused than before. "Ah!" said Cole. "He is frightened," said Mr. Noakes. "Of course he's frightened," snapped the King of Rogues. "You're standing 2 inches in front of his face, and she's the size of a dragon. For heaven's sake, Pendlebury, make yourself presentable." The tiger raised an eyebrow. The knight gulped. I mean, if you wouldn't mind," he added. There was a short, sharp sound like the ripping of stitches, and then Pendlebury was the size of a regular tiger without anyone knowing quite how she'd done it. "Better?" she said. "Maybe a little smaller," said the King of Rogues. "No," said Pendlebury. Cole stared at the tiger in shock. He could see every strand of her fur bristling and shifting in the candlelight. There was no doubting it. She was as real as he was. She turned to face him and spoke. "Do not be frightened, Cole. It is us, your guardians, your lifelong friends and protectors. We have broken all the laws of our kind to come to your world and bring you dire news. There is much that will shock you, much that you will struggle to believe, but you must believe, Cole. If you do not, all is lost. She raised herself to her full majestic height, her eyes shining down like amethysts. Are you ready, Cole? Are you ready to hear the most important news of your life and discover why we have travelled from another world to find you? The Guardians waited expectantly for his reply. The attic was so quiet you could hear snowflakes settling on the roof. No, said Cole. There was a long silence. Pendlebury shifted on her paws. Sorry, did you just say no? She said. Cole sighed apologetically. Look, I've had a lot of bad news today. I'm not sure I can take much more, especially from, I don't mean to be rude, my imaginary friends come to life. He held out his hands. You can understand that, can't you? I don't understand how you're here in front of me, let alone why. I feel a bit overwhelmed. He shuffled his feet. Sorry. The Guardians looked at each other. He never used to be so difficult, muttered Mr. Noakes. I told you he'd be like this, said the King of Rogues. Pendlebury was somewhat deflated. I suppose this is a lot to take in. We have an awful lot to explain, Colin. We're sort of running out of time. She gazed at him pleadingly. Is there anything we could do to help you listen? I'm going to stop the extract there. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're interested to find out more about the Midnight Guardians and the rest of Cole's quest and why it is that they've travelled from an imaginary world to find him and warn him. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the whole of the conference. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.